Hi everyone, this is Brad from Board Game Geek. I'm here with Anton from Fantasy Flight Games, and thanks for taking the time to speak with us.
Pleasure. Thanks for coming.
I think if there was a theme for this Gen Con or this year, it's really been integrating apps into games. I know XCOM obviously came first and started that, but I guess earlier this year or late last year we saw Road to Legend release, and then just before the con, we heard about Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition that features an app heavily. Can you tell us about those projects?
Sure. So it's starting at XCOM and the announcement for XCOM, we spoke about a vision of taking this technology that is ubiquitous. We keep it in our pocket. I'm sure most of us here have a device either on our person or at home. And say, like, how do you take a technology like that and incorporate it in a way that might be really useful and novel for board games? Now, we're a tabletop company, we're a tabletop entertainment, and XCOM was our first attempt at an app-driven board game where the tech itself is meant to provide something that could not easily be represented by cards or mechanisms or reference material. So if it was too much on the digital side, then it might as well be a video game. And if it's too far on the on the simple side, then what you have is a randomizer. You can use a deck of cards. You can use dice, right? And so I think we found a sweet spot with XCOM, at least for the first release, of an app that requires a little bit of input. It takes just a couple of seconds at the end of each round, and the application then will incorporate the board state round after round. Like, it is actively working against you, and so the designers now can sort of add a game experience and some interesting mechanisms that do respond or are altered by your own efforts, right? But it's a board game, and there are decks of cards, and there are dice, and there are components. You actually need to play the board game itself. Road to Legend then sort of leapt in another direction with Descent. Descent 2nd Edition is a one versus many game. The antagonist is working against the group of heroes, up to 4 heroes. And so we thought, well, what if you wanted a purely cooperative experience? And that's been a sort of a dream for me as a role player, starting in the late 70s, is, look, we're a bunch of adventurers. The DM or the GM is not meant to antagonize us to death. They're not competing. They're meant to make for a great experience, make for a great story. And so Road to Legend took Descent 2nd Edition and all of its expansions and allowed you to indicate what expansions you owned, and it then uses all that content and delivers something that is uniquely tailored to the monster groups and the heroes and the upgrade cards and all the content from those games, and then provides the unfolding narrative. So it gives you the backdrop. And then again, the monsters have an AI. Like, what is interesting with Road to Legend is the monsters themselves are going to react in unpredictable ways, but in ways that are specific to that monster type. So turn after turn, and then the first time I played through it, I realized that, the first attack, the monsters act a certain way, and the minion group activates, and then the master monster activates. And then 2 turns later, they changed their approach. Like, suddenly they backed away and they started attacking with ranged weapons. And it felt very dynamic. It felt very organic and sort of interactive, as if, we were fighting against these creatures in a dungeon. And then there's the element of surprise. With Descent, you typically would lay out all of the board pieces. And the objective. Each player, the overlord or the adventurers, know at the start, and this is open information, they know their game win condition. With Road to Legend and the AI in this app, we could just present you with the opening room. Right, you get a backstory, and you enter the dungeon, and you see a dank hallway, and you place that hallway tile down, and that's all you know. You see a door at the end, and now it's up to you to actually explore this dungeon, make choices, like through which door do we exit. And then the map will be revealed. So it does all of that without a human overlord, without an antagonist or a DM to work for you. It's just the rest of us sit together.
That sounds really interesting, and it's cool how you guys managed to make it feel organic, right? Because the advantage of something like a Descent instead of something that's more programmatic is that you have that human element of the enemies to face off against. Was that a challenge to recreate?
Certainly, and I think part of what makes game design exciting as a creative effort from the creative side is figuring out, well, how exactly do you make a system, whether you're using cards and dice and tangible components, or you're using this app-driven tabletop board game. How do you marry all of these little elements together to make an experience that feels like whatever it is you're trying to capture? And so we have this dungeon crawl, this sort of classic adventure dungeon crawl with Road to Legend is a grand campaign. And there's a campaign map. And I remember after the first scenario, we were triumphant. And at the end, we went back to town and we had some gold. And we started buying selling equipment off and upgrading ourselves with new gear, new weapon, or look at this armor. And the next morning we left and were faced with a choice. There was rumors, essentially. We saw the countryside and two potential destinations. And so we chose one of the two. We were mercilessly beaten down. We fought and fought and fought. And at the end, we dragged ourselves back to the town, and we're about to go out into the world and realize the other rumor was gone. And so instead, so the world it feels dynamic. I mean, the choices have to be made, and you don't know that you're going to have that choice again. And that was exciting too.
That's really cool. And I know you guys have now done a similar thing with Mansions of Madness 2nd edition. Can you tell me a little bit about that as well?
So then we get to Mansions of Madness. So Mansions of Madness 1st edition was, like Descent, was one versus many. It was set in the world of Arkham, and each player, if you weren't the keeper or the antagonist, each player was an investigator, and found themselves working together, entering a mansion. So there were beautiful board tiles, different rooms, both interior and exterior spaces on this property. But for that game to work, the keeper would know all the secrets in advance, and they would meticulously set up the entire map, and they would stage stacks of cards, essentially encounter cards, that needed to very precisely be arrayed. So that the first time you encounter something, you take the first card off the top, and the second, and it was a cumbersome setup. It actually served our design goal, but it did take a long time to set up. And if you made an error with a single card, you might find out an hour and a half into the game that, I just looked at the wrong, I shouldn't have seen this card, and now you've spoiled some big surprise. So as we were learning, we looked at Road to Legend. One of the questions was, well, where else can we explore this narrative, app-driven content with this AI, sort of branching logic tree, and Mansions was right at the top of the list. And so the beauty now of Mansions is you start the app, you choose your investigators and your scenario, because there are several of varying lengths and difficulty. And then you say, I'm going to start the scenario, and you hear a voiceover, and you have this backstory, you have sort of the context for that particular scenario. And then the door opens, and there you're instructed to put a specific room tile down, and you've entered the house, and that's all you know. The maps can be very different, so it is not fixed. It would incorporate 1st edition content if you own 1st edition Mansions of Madness or any of those expansions. You indicate that in the app, and it can make use of those investigators, those monsters, those room tiles. And so there is really this sense of foreboding and sort of mounting tension, because I don't know the layout of the house. All I see is there are 3 points of interest. There's a painting in the corner, and I don't know what that is. There are 2 doors on the west wall, and I hear a noise in the kitchen. And now it's my turn, so where do I go? And it was really incredible, the sense of story and the unfolding tale. And I won't give any spoilers, but even on the first simplest scenario, there were things happening by the end of it, like as you sort of reach a fever pitch in the arc of this story, that had me laughing. I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's just very clever. It allows the logic to be hidden inside the game, and so you have a sense of true discovery and this variety, even if you play the same scenario over and over. It was very cool, and I think people that know Road to Legend, if you like the Mansions Arkham world, you should check it out, because Mansions is really the fully fleshed out vision of what that system can offer. That
sounds really fascinating. I know you guys mentioned also in your in-flight report that you're potentially working on a similar system for Imperial Assault?
So one of the most frequent questions after Road to Legend was released is, well, are you working on any other titles? What is interesting about Imperial Assault is you have individual character figures, you've got jigsaw map components, and it is scenario driven, much just like Descent. In Imperial Assault, you have the antagonist, you have the Imperial player. And people really were hoping that at some point we would manage to have a collaborative Star Wars experience. Like, can we all be heroes? Can we all be on the same side, working against whatever the antagonist may be? And so yesterday, at the in-flight report, Christian Peterson got up in front of everyone and said, we are working on it. And we're looking at sometime in 2017. We're not going to even say at what point in the year, but we're very excited, again, to look at the next iteration of what will make for a new, unique board game experience, very narrative, very character-driven, but not have it be a role-playing game, have it be a board game. And now for Imperial Assault in the Star Wars universe, have a cooperative experience as heroes, as members of the Rebel, the Resistance group or the Rebellion, facing whatever threats may come, and then have that sense of discovery. I mean, who knows what we're going to face? It's going to be very great.
That sounds really cool.
Cool.
So, just one last thing.
Yep.
Also, in the in-flight report, you mentioned there'll be an expansion for XCOM coming. Will that include app updates as well?
Yeah. So, thank you for mentioning that. It's a small box expansion that is coupled with an app upgrade. So you just go and download that app. When it's released, there are a few pieces of plastic in there to represent the upgraded Marines and sort of heavy tech armor. But all the other mechanisms are either representative cards, but then will be supported by the app itself. And that's one of the beauties of this app-driven board gaming or board game design is when it is possible that we can push out updates, we can make changes, we can incorporate new content that doesn't need to be physically printed and packaged. And again, it will be a surprise as it arises because you won't find out until you face it. And I think that sort of surprise and delight, that sense of novelty and discovery is something for these narrative games that have a sort of tactical, strategic element. It's something that's very exciting. Sort of takes a little bit of movies, a little bit of storytelling, and then what we know of as strategy board gaming sort of wraps it all together. So
sounds awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I think that covers all the digital stuff for now. Awesome. Thank you so much, and we'll look forward to learning more about these. These hybrids seem really great, and it seems like they're getting better and better with each iteration, so thank you.
We're very excited. We think the future is bright, and we'll see what happens later in the year, next year.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you.
Take care, Brad.
Thanks.